Thank you for tuning in to this latest Emerging Threats Group video. We appreciate your time, ladies and gentlemen, as always. This video is going to be more of a behind the scenes type one. We are going to be using the video we used a couple of weeks ago regarding the Typhoon versus the F-15EX. The only major difference we have here is the EX. We have just reduced its missile count down to a more normal 6 AIM-260s each, although it does also carry 4 Sidewinders of that. So it does have a total of 10 missiles, and in each flight of fighters you have 12 JATMs and 8 Sidewinders, which does outnumber the Typhoon's one. So they've got equal amount of radar-guided missiles, but the Eagles do have more infrared-guided missiles, Sidewinders in this case. But what we're going to do is demonstrate what happens when we play around with the weapon release authority ranges. In this, we're going to start off with 75%. We're going to work down to circa 60% and 50%, and then down to like the no escape zone that we've used before, just to kind of demonstrate what happens. In this circumstance, the Meteor that the Typhoons are armed with will fire at all targets about 75 nautical miles away. The ASRAAM, we've left that as 50%, so 12 nautical miles at the moment. We don't really expect the Typhoon to get much into range enough to use that. What we're also going to do to kind of demonstrate what happens here, we are going to make it so that our units try and avoid guns and short-range air-to-air missiles here. And we'll just make sure that's uniform and therefore mirrored on the other side as well. So we'll switch to the Red Force side. So again, going behind the scenes a little bit, you can kind of see what the command operations, rules of engagement, and weapons release authority windows look like. And as you see here with the AIM-260s, we've got it set to 75%, which is 90 nautical miles for this missile. This is a longer range weapon. Sidewinders are set to 50%, which is only 7 nautical miles, as they're quite a short range weapon, even when compared to the ASRAAM. So what we'll do, we will run it in God's eye view, meaning that we can see all aspects of the battlefield, and we'll commence with this now. So as you can see, so at this point our fighters cannot see each other, they are just flying around in their combat air patrols. The wedge tails themselves are about 430 nautical miles apart, so we have a United States one here and a Royal Air Force one here. So even though they have a range of about 350 nautical miles from their radars, they can't actually see each other at this point, which also explains why they usually don't engage. As you can see now, the aircraft have found each other. The Typhoons got a bead on the F-15 Eagle 2s, so they actually realised what they were at about 184 nautical miles. So the weapons are now firing. So the Eagles fired at about 19 nautical miles, the Typhoons fired at about 60 nautical miles. As you can see, the missiles are running out of fuel and velocity there. Looks like the odd Typhoon has been destroyed, but the probability of kill ratio is very low for both sides. In fact, what we'll do is we will switch sides at this point, so you can see that the JATMs do carry more fuel than the Meteor does. It is a dual pulse motor, and whereas the Meteor is a ramjet. It isn't exactly known what the range of the JATM is yet. I think in command operations it is set to 120 nautical miles, whereas the Meteor is set to exactly 100 nautical miles. At this point, 6 Typhoons have been destroyed for 1 Eagle, but if you look how many missiles have been fired, the PK is between about 1 and 15% right now. It's really not a very good probability of kill at all. I believe in the 2021 Atlantic Trident exercise, if you read some of the French sources, they reckoned at around 30%, maybe 1/3, so 33% of missiles were able to kill a target. So, you know, let's say for example you've got Typhoons armed with 8 missiles. That means that they may be able to kill 2 at most 3 targets. An F-35 Bravo with 4 missiles internals may be able to is definitely able to kill 1, maybe 2 targets. So yes, the PK you're currently seeing is on the lower side, partly because of just how far away the targets are, and the missiles do run out of velocity before getting there. I mean, look, the Eagles will turn around and run away pretty quickly when there's a missile coming at them, and the Typhoons do as well, but maybe to a lesser extent in this case. So it does look like we have lost 10 Typhoons, and it took 67 plus JASSMs to do that. There are a few more still getting fired right now. Whereas the Typhoons fired 52 meteors and shot down 5 Eagles. So you're kind of looking at, yeah, the PK is not. I'm not going to try and just quickly do mental maths there, but the PK is nowhere near 30%. We'll speed up the scenario now. Looks like one of the Typhoons did go and chase down an Eagle, maybe damaged it. Just see what the final scores were. So 11 Typhoons destroyed to 6 Eagles, and if you look at the amount of missiles fired, it's a ridiculous amount for how few kills were achieved. Next up, we'll do the 50%. So now we are actually going to do the 60%. I did misspeak. And so as you can see here, the meteors have been set to a range of 60 nautical miles, which is 60% of 100. I am a maths genius, as you can tell. And then if we switch over to the Eagles, as you can see, they too have had their weapons release authority reduced. This is to about 70 nautical miles, so which is about maybe 60%, maybe slightly under. Again, it doesn't give me the option to maybe do a 75 nautical miles, which would probably be the ideal amount. So we have just gone for 70 here. As before, both sides, the infrared missiles are set to a 50% maximum engagement. So let's just see what happens. Again, so in theory, you should definitely get a far higher PKs this time around. Once again, God's eye view is on. Looks like they managed to get a visual lock with the sniper pod at about 93 nautical miles. Before that, with the radar, they picked up as a Typhoon about 124 nautical miles. You can see the JASSMs are unleashing. Looks like the meteors have been fired in return as well. First Eagle's gone down. As before, we have got it so the fighters may try and engage with short-range missiles at short distances, but they won't ideally try and chase enemy fighters all the way back to their base. Again, in real life, you can imagine most of the time, certainly against a peer opponent, you're probably going to want to preserve airframes as much as being overly aggressive. I am happy to be corrected on that, but again, most Western militaries tend to be a little bit more on the conservative side when it comes to that kind of thing. So currently, it looks like 4 times in fact, it looks like the Typhoons are winning this one. 4 Typhoons destroyed to 9 Eagles. And as you can see, just the amount of missiles fired, it's a little bit lower compared to the amount of kills received. Looks like the PK has been improved, certainly for the Typhoons anyway. They fired 38 meteors, shot down 12 Eagles. So that's roughly a third of missiles actually killing their target. For the Eagles, it is a little bit worse than that, simply because they were on the losing side here. They were only able to shoot down 4 Typhoons, and they did fire 54 AIM-260s. So now we switch to the 50% of missile range for the weapons release authority. This is for the F-15 Eagles, so red side. We've got it to 50% max. So that's 60 nautical miles, and that's against enemy aircraft for the JASSM. Sidewinder is still set to 50% range with 7 nautical miles for the Sidewinders. And then if we switch over to the Typhoons, you will see that we have also done the same thing for them. Meteors now fire at 50 nautical miles, so 50% range, and the Azaram is also set to 50% as before. So let's see how this goes for our plucky forces. So it looks like they are now in firing range. fight probably proceeded a little bit quicker than I would have liked it to. Certainly does look like the Eagles have come out on top in this. So 10 Typhoons destroyed to 6 Eagles so far. Again, at the moment it's maybe 4 missiles to a kill for the Eagles. Maybe about 6, maybe 8 for the Typhoons. Again, trying to do mental maths quickly there. Speed it up again a little bit. So we have 1 final Typhoon left. He has 6 Meteors left. He is engaging, but he may also get destroyed first. Now he did dodge those. Did manage to at least take a couple of Eagles with him, or perhaps just the one. Yep, there goes an F-15. So at the moment there are only 2 Eagles left and 1 Typhoon, so it's actually turned out rather evenly. Again, you're probably looking at 3 to 4 missiles per kill here, so somewhere between 20 to 30%. Looks like the Typhoons are trying to gun down the Eagle there. They managed to damage him, but didn't manage to finish him off. So just to confirm, a win for the Eagles, albeit a very narrow one. And yeah, so the kill ratio is somewhere between 20 to 33%. We have now switched to the no escape zone. So as you can see, our F-15EX is here, Red Force. They will fire their AIM-260s at no escape zone range, which really does vary about what they're firing against. I.e., against something like a tanker, it could be as much as maybe 100 nautical miles away. Against something like a Typhoon or F-35, you're looking at a much closer distance. The Sidewinders are also set to fire at no escape zone. And if we flick over to the Typhoons, and you can see for yourself, we have done exactly the same for them. They will fire at no escape zone, as will the Azarams. So let's see how this goes. This is the one that we ran in the video, which we also did the PowerPoint presentation for. The main difference is the F-15EX Eagle 2s have less JATMs than they did in those videos. That one they had, I believe it was 12 AIMs 260s for each aircraft, as well as 2 Sidewinders. These only have 6 each, so 12 to a flight. So it will be interesting to see if that does make a huge amount of difference. One of the reasons we reduced the amount of AIM 260s was just to try and reduce the amount of missiles that are maybe like wastage, if you get what I mean. I.e., if a missile destroys one of the Typhoons, but then another 3 missiles goes for it, obviously they're all likely going to miss, and therefore reduce the PK. So the first blood does go to the Eagles, as we've usually seen in other videos. That's at least 3 Typhoons destroyed. And I don't think any Eagles were shot down in reply there. Maybe at least 4, if not 5 Typhoons destroyed. Yes, and no Eagles have yet been destroyed. Again, the PKs are not spectacularly high, but that is part of the weapons release authority for aircraft to use 2 missiles against 4th and 5th gen fighters. Again, it is more likely to try and shoot one of those aircraft down than if you're double tapping your missiles. Otherwise, there's always the aircraft's probably going to dodge 1 missile, especially in the days of, well, especially now we've got stealth, advanced ECM, towed decoys, and technology like that. Might be the first kill for the Typhoons. Let's just check. In fact, they have now killed 3 Eagles, but 9 Typhoons have bitten the dust. Surely some of those Typhoons will get knocked out. Yep, 1 did, but they did take an Eagle with them. And that looked like an ASRAM that must have been used then. They're going into guns because they've ended up in a bit of a dogfight there. And now these guys are coming in to finish them off with an ASRAM as well. Does look like they may try and pursue the Eagles, and they did, but they actually got destroyed themselves. So let's just see what the final scores were there. 11 Typhoons were destroyed to 8 15EXs. It started off as quite a one-sided affair, with the Eagles dominating the Typhoons, but the Typhoons did recover. In terms of missile usage, 34 Meteors were fired at and they resulted in the loss of 8 Eagles, and it looks like 59 Jatams were fired against the Typhoon. So again, we're looking at pretty low kill ratios here, even in no escape range, which is, I mean, it doesn't really bode well for the amount of modern logistics situations, as it's unlikely that most militaries can fire that many missiles in engagements and still actually have enough missiles to go around, especially when you consider the price of some of these missiles. So for this final part of the video, what we've done is mixed it up slightly. We have 6 aircraft from each side, firing at 60% weapons release authority, and another 6 aircraft from each side firing at a no escape zone. So the missions themselves are exactly the same sizes, as you can see here. The only difference is their weapons release authority is slightly different, and we'll see if that makes a huge amount of difference. I'm curious to see if it does, and we're also going to allow aircraft to actually use their guns in this situation and actually go in for the kill a little bit closer. And if we switch to the Eagles, just to confirm they are also following the same rules here. So we'll make it so that guns are perfectly acceptable. And yep, so they have no escape zone for some of those. And then check the missions. Weapons release authority of 70 nautical miles, which is circa 60%. And for the other ones, as stated, it is no escape zone. So let's just see how this goes, shall we? See if it alters the balance at all. We'll see this from the Eagles' point of view, at least to start off with. As you can see, we are once again in God Eyes mode. So at the moment, none of the aircraft see each other. We'll speed things up, and now they have detected each other, and the Eagles are coming in at just under Mark 1, about Mark 0.9. Typhoons, however, have gone to full afterburner. They're going at Mark 1.6. It is unlikely the Typhoons could go that fast with external tanks still on. However, the Typhoon does have the ability to go supersonic while carrying weapons, certainly air-to-air loadouts anyway. And they're almost to the point where they're out of fuel in their tanks anyway. So the Eagles have fired. So those will be the missiles fired at about 70 nautical miles. As you can see, they do go on a lofting trajectory. They go at about Mark 4.6. And first kills, as expected, do go to the Eagles. First meteors are going in, and they have at least killed 1 Eagle. Perhaps that's the only one. It does look like those are still keeping their speed up, at least to start with, and then just as they get to where the Eagles are, that's when their velocity starts to drop off. And let's just see what the losses are so far. So at the moment, the Typhoons are, as it seems to be the usual against the EXs, they have lost more aircraft. But sometimes the Typhoons start off worst and then do close the gap towards the end of the battle. After all, even though the AIM-260 does have a slightly longer range than the Meteor, both are highly advanced missiles, and both are more than capable of killing the other aircraft without too much issues. Indeed, although the EX does tend to win more fights than it loses against the Typhoon certainly does at least perform admirably. It certainly is capable of winning. And when I did do some tests against some of the Russian aircraft earlier, the Typhoon came out on top in almost every engagement, even against the more advanced Russian aircraft. And I don't want to spoil too much, but we will be doing some videos showcasing US and European 4.5 gen fighters against Russian fighters of 4, 4.5 and even 5th gen. So in this case, looks like the Typhoons have lost 9 aircraft to 6 Eagles. And it does look like the Typhoons might be running away at the moment. What we will do is switch over to the Typhoon point of view. And we'll speed up the engagement, see what the Typhoons do. So some of them are re-engaging. They did shoot down an F-15 there, but it does look like a Typhoon was destroyed just a minute or so ago. We have one Typhoon left there, one left there. Neither of them have much in the way of fuel at this point. And there are at least 3 Eagles left by the looks of it, although that's now down to 2. They have far more fuel. They also have probably, in fact, no, in terms of missiles, it's probably all about even. Typhoons might even have slightly more at this point. And there is another Eagle there, but he's limping home, although he does look like he may have fired off some missiles at his Typhoon as part of his final act. It's possible they may kill the Typhoon. Nope, it did dodge. Okay, how many missiles did it fire? If we do go to aircraft view, I mean, this Typhoon may not make it home now. If it has to go on afterburner, it certainly will run out of fuel. It has just about enough. And this may turn into an easy kill for the F-15s, and it did. They managed to damage the final Typhoon as well. If we look at the final scores there, it did actually turn out to be pretty even. 11 Typhoons destroyed to 10 F-15 EXs. So it does look like maybe having a mixed weapons release authority can have its uses. Certainly if you've been running scenarios and realizes you're losing them, then maybe going to a mixed one where half your aircraft fire at no escape zone and the other half fire at a longer range, say 60%, could come in useful. Certainly, one use for using longer range shots is to suppress the enemy, make them honour the threat, meaning they may have to dive and lose altitude or, turn away from the engagement to survive, which is probably more useful when you're escorting something like a strike package close to a target, where shooting down the enemy is probably less important than getting your strike package through to a target and destroying whatever the target is. Of course, back in the Second World War, I believe the Allies did actually try and draw the Germans up into the to attack the bombers. In fact, if anything, the bombers almost became the decoy to draw the Luftwaffe up to engage the bombers, and then the American fighters or Allied fighters would pick them off that way, and that was one way the Luftwaffe was destroyed, or certainly a major part of it. Whereas now, it's usually preferable to try and destroy enemy aircraft on the ground, especially because there's not as many of them. But yes, thank you for watching this video, and hopefully that gives you a little bit more insight on why we tend to use shorter ranges. Certainly anything 75% or over leaves fights to be horrifically low probability of kills. The no escape zones can be on the shorter side of things, and therefore we may try and just use a mixture of maybe no escape zones and also maybe something a bit bigger like 50 to 60% in future videos. But it really is very circumstantial. I.e., you may have noticed in some of our videos where we've been facing off against lower altitude aircraft, it becomes far more difficult for missiles to maneuver through the denser atmosphere down low, meaning they lose velocity quicker and therefore are less effective. Against high altitude targets, you're kind of seeing both the AMRAAM Deltas, the Meteors and the JATMs in their more of that element, shall we say. But yes, thank you for watching this video, and please do like and subscribe, and I hope that you enjoyed this behind the scenes look.